In this episode today, I'm joined by Mike Phillips. Mike is an entrepreneur who's had several different business ventures and is the owner of Blue Sky Ranch in Wanship, Utah. In this episode today, we discuss Mike's drive and what continues to drive him each and every day to succeed. We touch on some of the failures and some of the obstacles he's had to overcome, and we look ahead at how he plans his day and what he does to attack each and every moment he can. Also, In the Arena is donating $250 on Mike's behalf to the Saving Gracie Equine Healing Foundation, which was founded in 2014 and was created to aid in the rescue of neglected, abused, and abandoned horses. I hope you folks enjoy.
Perfect. Mike, thank you so much, sir, for taking the time. I really do appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks a lot, Bobby, for having me.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, we've had known you for a few years now, and one of the things I've always loved about you, just in general, is the fact of how genuine and authentic you are. You know, kind of what you see is what you get, and it was a lot of fun to go through and kind of do some research for this and kind of dig in and see a little bit more of your roots and come from California and
yeah.
So I'm really just kind of curious along the way. I mean, have you always just stayed that authentic and kind of true to yourself throughout, and those passions have kind of just filled in around that?
Well, yeah, thanks. I appreciate you saying that. You know, that's nice of you to say. It probably comes from my mom. You know, she was, God rest her soul, she passed away a couple of years ago, and she outlived my dad by about 10 years, and she was always kind of the moral compass in our family. And she was kind of from the ranching background, and all of her relatives, my grandfather, were all in the ranching business and different aspects of cattle and horses and all that. And, you know, they kind of came from, kind of salt of the earth. It was, mean what you say and then, do what you say you're going to do, and, have it so that your words you bond. And if you do that throughout your life, you're going to be, there's a good chance you're going to be successful. So she's probably the inspiration for, trying to just, get along and be yourself, and, be honest about the things you're doing, and, and then things usually work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's really one of those things that you kind of notice, because it should be fairly simple to just kind of be authentic and genuine, but it's amazing how things get caught up in life, and there's posturing and there's all kinds of different things, and people are able to kind of see through that and be able to tell the difference. And that's one of the things I really always appreciate about you, is that always seem very genuine and authentic, at least to me, in our time that we've had together.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that ranching has always had an impression and kind of stuck with you into Blue Sky and everything else, because, I mean, you really had an interesting journey going to USC. I mean, you were really a soccer star. You were an All-American there. And how much did like athletics and that part kind of help the competitive drive and kind of throughout your life?
Well, I love sports. I mean, I've always loved sports. I love playing sports. I still play. I'm 66 years old. I still am, competitive, and it's funny when I go play golf with my buddies, everybody seems to want to beat me, and probably because I want to beat them. And I compete hard but play fair, and that. But I've always loved that. I think that competition is something, if it's healthy, and you play by the rules, and you're appreciative and respectful of the people that you're playing with, but you play hard and try to win. That's what's really great about the camaraderie that comes with competing, and it's true in business. I think it's true in life. But one of the things that I really enjoyed was always playing on a team. And when I grew up, I played baseball all the time, played a lot of sports, and I just really enjoyed the team aspect of cooperating with other people, being able to communicate with them. Really understand what each person's role needed to be in order to accomplish the goal and win the game, or be competitive, and then the hard work that goes into understanding what the things are that you have to work on. And when I was in high school, I played baseball, and I was a shortstop, and I went to high school, boarding school in Detroit, actually. my dad was in the insurance business and moved to Houston. I was there. I went back to school there. And while I was there, Billy Martin was the coach for the Detroit Tigers. And probably before your time, but you probably know Billy Martin. You know, he was good friends with Mickey Mantle and that. And so he befriended me. I used to babysit his son, Billy Jr. And, you know, he used to always tell me, you know, Mike, work on your weaknesses. He said, you know, look, in the major leagues, the guys that really, really do well are the guys that recognize what are the things that they don't do as well. And they just focus and concentrate on those things and improving on those things. And then the good things, the good things that you're natural at, well, they'll take care of themselves. Doesn't mean you don't need to practice them, but it's the weaknesses that can hurt you. And so I always remembered that. And I've applied that to all the things that I've done in all the activities, particularly in business, where you know, people tend to go with their strengths because that's usually what they get hired for, their specialization, those kinds of things.
Sure.
And some of the things that you learn over time when you're predisposed to that, which I was when I started out in business, is that there are some soft skills about how people are feeling about what they're doing in the team and in the organization. And that's probably, you know, with team sports, that's the one thing that I learned early on is to, you know, not try and stand out as much, but to cooperate with the other guys that you needed. Because if you throw to first base, the guy doesn't catch it, you know, you're not going to get the guy out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm just curious, have those weaknesses stayed the same over the years, or have you worked at them and then they become new weaknesses and as new challenges and stuff through life kind of arise? Or do those like always say that you're like,
Well, in business, they come up. I mean, just like they do in any activity that you do, any sports, any association, any of those things. You know, you make mistakes, and so you can handle them a few different ways. And many people, you know, just deny that they ever make a mistake, so they never really get to that point where they say, you know, I made a mistake, and what do I need in terms of skill set in order to be able to improve that? In addition to that, in an organization, particularly if you're leading it, if you don't allow people to make mistakes and you criticize them, and then they feel uncomfortable in making decisions going forward because they're going to be criticized for making a mistake, rather than talking to them about what this can be as a learning experience to improve going forward. You know, those are things that they don't help your business if you don't give people that forum. And so over time, you know, when you're building a business, you're building people as well as the product that you're going to sell or what you're going to do if you're building a blue sky, something like that. But in every aspect of it, it's the people part that make it successful. And if the people feel comfortable that you are helpful in their ability to express their feelings about things that they are either unsure of or they may have made a mistake on, and that you know, they can have a forum where you can help them get through it. Not only that, point out that, you know, you can improve it, then that really helps your organization. It doesn't mean that there aren't consequences for, you know, bad behaviors.
Sure.
There are. There are, you know, mistakes that are things that people may just not know about or may not develop skill sets. And then there's just bad behavior and those kinds of things. That's a whole different story. I mean, there's you know, an important part of leadership where, you know, there are lines that are, you know, within borders that can't be crossed, and those have to be enforced. But you know, those are rare occasions, fortunately. I know we hear about it a lot in the media and all that stuff, but really it's rare that you would have circumstances where there's a lot of bad behaviors. Most of it is that, you know, people are looking for ways to improve. And if you're a leader or manager, you have to be able to, you know, help them through that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting point because it's one of those things, at least I see in coaching and in skiing and stuff like that. I mean, especially the new generation kind of coming up and everything else, it's definitely very interesting to see what happens when they get a little bit criticized, or the fact that they want to be perfect and don't want to make those mistakes. And I think with the spotlight on social media and all those things, everything is just so heightened that rather than going out and being bold and making some mistakes and, you know, I mean, life is consistently failing until you finally find that success that gets you over, and having that kind of grit and determination, you know. And it's lot of the people that I've had on here, you know, always talk about that, being willing to fail and failing constantly. And it is one of those things that you don't really want to talk. You always want to talk about the successes because they're a lot more fun, but you always
Right.
seem to learn a lot more from those damn failures.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, and I think one of the things that I've seen in sports as well as business, other organizations, is women coming into those workplaces and those competitive areas. And you know, one of the things that's different about you know, women and men is you know, the feelings that are associated with success. And you know, one of the challenges, as you know, particularly in my business where I've had very talented women, has been to recognize that it's important to understand how somebody feels about something, because if you make them feel good about certain things, whether it's male or female, but you know, females seem to be more tuned into that and be more responsive when you can have that conversation. That's a really positive thing and I think it has been a very positive thing in business and also sports. I mean, it's you know, the ability for you to talk to your coach, or a junior coming in and competing at that level, trying to talk to their coach, and you know, and having the coach be open to, you know, well, how'd you feel about that? You know, I mean, yeah, you hit the gate or you missed the jump and this and that, you know, how'd you feel about it? And, you know, where's your head there? And, you know, there's, you know, golf's a funny thing, you know, I love to play golf and I like to, you know, do a lot of things, but golf in particular is one of those sports where when you look at the pros, they all have talent at world-class level. And the difference is the mental game. And it really is, it's that half of 1%, you probably experienced this, of really digesting what it takes to calm yourself down, to listen to what, you know, is going on with you, and then trying to execute at the highest level on something that you've practiced all your life. And that's true in business too. That's true in any time you want to be successful. If you focus on the end game and you miss the process, you won't be successful. I mean, sometimes you may accidentally stumble on something, you know, that's always, you know, I'd rather be lucky than good,
Right.
But, you know, but most of the time, the successful people that I've seen and the most successful athletes and people that lead organizations and that, they're not terribly concerned about making the money or winning that cup at that point. They're really focused on getting one shot at a time, getting one thing done at a time at the best level that they know how to do. In skiing, it's one turn at a time. It's making sure that technically you're really executing. And so those are the things that I think in organizations people lose sight of, and they tend to, we got to make money, we got to make our numbers, we got to do this, we got to do that. Well, yeah, I mean, but sometimes maybe your goal is a little, you know, too soon. You know, maybe it takes more time to do that. Maybe your team doesn't have the skill set yet, and that's your teaching. That's what's going on. So there are a lot of things where the more sensitive you can be about what those, you know, elements are in the process, I think the more successful you can be.
And so where did you kind of get some of those elements for you through your career? When did you, I mean, did you start to pick that up along the way, or is it back?
Yeah, I think I probably, you know, I kind of cruised through my high school years. And then when I went to SC and I started to play sports at that level, I realized that if I was going to compete at that level, I needed to get much more serious. And on a daily basis, I needed to practice more discipline, both academically as well as in the field. And I learned that, you know, I was better off. I was always a guy in high school that, you know, I never used to study. I was so social and doing everything that I'd cram the night before and I get a B, and that was good enough, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And then when I went to college, you know, and I was in the, you know, in a bigger format, bigger school with much bigger competition, I realized it was like, if you're going to be successful, you need to start to do things daily. And you know, you need to have the process in place. And that's where I really started to look at it and say, okay, well, and I got success that way. You know, I was better at it, and the coaches recognized it. They were talking to me more about what I could do and what the things, and I was following that. When I was following that, I was getting better results. So it's a whole thing about, you know, there's a synergy to having somebody coach you and then having that student, or player, respond. So I think that was where I got that part of it, during that period of my life.
So then after school, I mean, you start to go, you go overseas, you get some time over in England, and you get another degree over there. I mean, so you get to go see the world, kind of, and does that give you an idea? Once you're finished with school, did you kind of have a direction of where you wanted to go, and then life takes you another? I mean, to talk me through that a little bit.
Well, I was like a lot of young people. I mean, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I thought I wanted to be in the Foreign Service and sort of the, intelligence State Department kind of, G1, G2, G3, and all that stuff. And I was very interested in international relations, particularly in the Middle East. And so I thought, well, I'll go and do an internship. And I was based in London, and I traveled into the Middle East and, worked for about a little over a year in that. And came back, and one of the things I realized about myself is that that institutional structure was very limiting for my ability to be creative, and there was no risk involved in that, other than traveling in the Middle East was kind of risky, but in terms of what my work product and what I was doing, it was working for a large organization, either the government or General Electric or USC or some combination of all those organizations that were much bigger than I was. And I was functioning in that role, doing reporting, traveling, identifying a number of things that, Foreign Service would want to do. And, it was interesting, but it didn't really give me that entrepreneurial risk level that I thought I wanted. And so when I came back, and I was married at the time to Barb, and we were talking about it, and I said, I really would like to start something where I had more control and could grow, and I'd like to learn more about different kinds of businesses and that, and be more challenged. And of course, she's extremely supportive, and was like, well, if you don't like, you should do this. And I was like, okay, And so that was really kind of the mental shift, the psychological shift to understand in my own, what I wanted to do for my own self-esteem. I made a realization that, maybe a Foreign Service wasn't what I was cut out for. So I think that was one of the turning points for me in terms of business. And then, of course, you go through a process. Well, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting thing, especially, as an athlete, you have what you follow, you go through, and a competitive athlete, my own, it's like, okay, so what's the next step now? You have this thing, especially I did it for 18 years, you have this label of like, okay, I'm a skier, like competitive skier, travel the world, this is what I do, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to be done. And then like, all right, this is like the main thing I've done since I was 9 years old. Like, well, okay, what do I want to do next? And you try to figure out, and luckily, you have that great support, and you're able to find those next steps and go back to school and coaching for me, and being able to communicate with smart, successful people like yourself has been a blast so far. And it's fun to, I love to try and get 1% better each and every day, and get a few things out, and kind of what helps spurn the idea of this is, if people out there trying to figure out if they want to be more successful, and figure out some of the failures, and learn some of the stories, because it is every one of these ones that I've done, I've had plenty of things to take away, and so it's really interesting to kind of hear as you get that growth and you take that entrepreneurial step.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're on the right track, because doing podcasts and really understanding what successful people do, and having that kind of information available for people to access and help them, particularly during the periods of time when they might be taking risks to go out and do some things that are different than what, than getting a job or that. One of the things, I was a lousy employee, honestly. I was always insubordinate. I recognized early on, it was like, geez, if I was doing it, I wouldn't employ myself, because, I was upsetting everybody. But, it was because I was always coming up with ideas. I mean, my wife is always like, are you going to do that, thing? And it's like, yeah, maybe, yeah, probably. I don't know. She says, well, geez, we got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, but, she's predisposed to, that she's good with it.
Mhm.
But there is a personality there where, sometimes a person doesn't fit in organizations that are highly structured
Mhm.
and
Sure.
need more creativity in that. And a lot of times, my former company, Phillips Edison, is one that we're doing the same thing pretty much over and over and doing it really well and making a lot of money, and that's great.
Mhm.
But after 25 years of running it, I was kind of like, and thank God my partner is such a good guy and, wanted to run it and, and make it a public company, listed company and all that. I mean, that's great. It's great to have a partnership like that.
Sure.
But I was kind of like, well, we're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm kind of bored,
Yeah.
and so that was one of the reasons I spun, 38 of the employees of that company came with me. I spun it off and started to buy larger projects that were much more complicated and larger in scale. And, and it was great, and then all of a sudden I was challenged again, really challenged. And, I had to go into the capital markets and do a lot of stuff that I used to do when I was 40 and harness up the energy to do that.
Mhm.
And, and at the same time, I was looking at, I'd really love to have the ranch, be something that I could share with people and have a luxury lodge and a lot of things that Barb and I had, talked about in terms of the ranching and saving horses and, all the stuff that we really enjoy.
Mhm.
But to do it in a way that not only was convenient for us, but could, be profitable and people could see the value of it. So, and those are the challenges that I really like.
Sure.
I mean, that's at a high level. I was obviously, I put a lot of pressure on myself, put a lot of pressure on, my wife and that. But, we're kind of pros at it. We know how to deal with the stress.
Mhm.
And one of the things about dealing with the stress is that you can't take things too seriously and you have to enjoy your life.
Yeah.
And if you have the right partner and the right family and you're looking at it going, well, I mean, what if it fails? Well, if it fails, I still put my pants on and, figure out a way to get through this and all that. So, I mean, it's not all, even though there's risk involved, it's, you have to keep things in perspective and, know that, if it is successful and you've taken a risk, you're going to get significant rewards for it.
Mhm.
But, taking a risk without the discipline of being able to have the knowledge and experience to see it through would be like, trying to, run a ski run in a competitive, world-class deal with the old Kesley Red Stars. You're probably not going to do very well. And, and probably not, you probably might hit a few gates and,
Yeah.
fall in, it's not going to be pretty.
Mhm.
But very few people do that. I mean, occasionally they do. And, hopefully they'll learn from their mistake there. But, you want to make sure that you've practiced and, you're ready for the, challenges that are ahead of you. But it's a personality thing. And, it's one that if you recognize within yourself what your capabilities are, you can be happier in your career.
Well, I mean, it seems like one of the things you touched on a little bit earlier is the fact that you start to get a little bit bored in your area, and then you make that next step. You start to take more risk and everything else, and then it seems like you're a little bit out of your comfort zone. I mean, is that something that you kind of get to a point where you enjoy? I mean, obviously, it helps you grow in
Yeah.
all different aspects when you're kind of a little bit uncertain and you're not just in the.
Well, you know how it is. You know how it is when you're racing.
Mhm.
You want to be you want to be where you're out of your comfort zone,
Mhm.
but you don't want to get into your panic zone. Because if you're panicking, you're not thinking, and your body isn't going to respond very well.
Right.
And I always feel the same way about what I'm doing. It's like, one, I don't want to be angry, because if I'm angry about something, it's a bad time to make a decision.
Mhm.
And I don't want to be panicked about things because, I'm also not going to be rational and logical about
Mhm.
what the potential decisions might be that you make coming out of those kinds of emotions.
Mhm.
And so it's very similar to when you're competing at that level where, you got to be on razor's edge and you got to be a little out of your comfort zone, sometimes way out of your comfort zone,
Mhm.
but you don't want to get in that little area where it's like, I'm out of control.
Yeah.
Because when you're out of control going as fast as you guys go, you're probably going to go land in a tree somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
Bad things will
it's
happen.
one of those things where, yeah, I mean, you need to, you need to make sure you're in that zone. And, sometimes it happens. Sometimes you're like, oh, great. I can't believe that, what am I going to do?
Mhm.
And, okay, you crash, you get up, go through, it's like, okay, you get up the next morning. It wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get better. It's going to be okay. And you learn from your mistakes. And that's what I was talking about earlier. It's like you really try really hard to, particularly when other people make mistakes and it affects you in an organization. It's like,
Yeah.
if you react poorly to that, and you don't give the person a chance to explain, understand how they're feeling, where were they thinking about certain things, how did they get there?
Mm-hmm.
They might have made all the right decisions, the decisions you would have made. The outcome just didn't come to where they thought it was going to. You can't control everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, you just have to be able to, harness those things and try to, gain some understanding of those things. And then you'll just be better at it the next day.
Well, I mean, it really sounds like what also you're touching on when you're talking with your group, your different groups and leadership council and stuff like that, is the fact that you're able to communicate, so you're able to figure out what the issue is, and as you say, you went through it the exact same. You would have done it the exact same way, and you're able to figure out the kind of approach that they're taking, and that communication is. It seems it's really it's one of those things when I coach and everything else. I can't fix problems I don't know about. So.
Well, that's absolutely. I mean, if you don't listen to what's going on, you're in trouble as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're either manager, a coach, a leader, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't start off using the 2 ears you got, and then not reacting, but trying to understand what the issue is first, you're not going to have people that will listen to you. Most people. One of the things that I've learned over the years. Most people, even if you're a really effective communicator, only hear about 20% of what you're talking about. I mean, really hear what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you put them in a mode where they feel that they're, there's no understanding there, or they have a fear of talking to you about or telling you how they feel about certain things, if you don't give them that open forum, it goes to somewhere between 0 and 0.1. And, and basically, you've seen people who close their arms when you're talking to them after you've coached them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and then kind of like, give you that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of body language that goes with that. And, one of the challenges of being a coach is some people react naturally because that's been their conditioning with their parents or, whoever they grew up, however they grew up, their friends. Yeah. And one of the challenges for a coach that you probably have, and I have as a manager, is with different types of personalities like that, what are the skills that I need to elicit some of the things that will help them tell me what that is, what mistake they made, where they felt about it, and that.
Yeah.
And there are certain, skill sets that you can utilize to, open people up, depending what personality type there are. And that's one of the things that I think managers miss. That's sometimes when I'm working with horses, horses don't understand you when you're talking to them. They don't speak English. That comes as a surprise to a lot of people, because I see people talking to the horses all the time. And I say, that horse doesn't speak English. It doesn't speak, they're just horse, So there's a feeling that goes on between a horse and you. So a lot of things that you have to do with that is to make the horse feel like they're not threatened and allow them to have some peace so that when you do give them cues that are nonverbal, they understand what you're talking about. And I tell people, if you can, talk to people as if they don't really understand English, that they're not going to do, you probably are going to have a much greater success with them. They'll be more sensitive to what you're trying to understand and how they're feeling and that. And, you'll have more success with them. And a lot of people don't believe that. I've done executive sessions with YPO and done demonstrations and stuff.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is a lot of times the management guys, the senior executives, are so bad at the team building things, and the administrative people that work with them are much, much better.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
I've learned a lot, just like we did the thing with Kroger one year. and myself and another guy were doing the stuff with horses. It was called What a Horse Can Teach You. And you go through and you do this really cool sort of it's an obstacle course, but it's not that difficult,
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, but if you've never really done it with a horse, it's kind of hard. There's like 6 places you have to go and back over stuff and go through a thing and step over this thing and all that. And we don't give them a lot of, a lot of direction.
Okay.
We just tell them, hey, you can't come in and touch the horse, but you have to tell the person what needs to get done in order to get the horse through that. Well, in some cases, the managers would get upset, and the people that were trying to lead the horse through it would break down and and cry, because the guy was so insistent to get this thing done that he wasn't paying attention to the fact that the person was afraid of the horse.
Yeah.
It's like first things first. This person can't even hold the horse. And you're yelling at him. You got to get to the end of the thing to get over there. I was like, what are you talking about? And then you start to talk to them about who's on the team, who are the people, and they only would identify 2. And I'd say, no, like there's three beings involved in this. There's the horse, there's you, and there's the administrator.
Mm-hmm.
And you miss the horse, which is the most important one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's really funny that the level of communication skills, the higher up you go in the hierarchy, tends to get lower and lower because they have more pressure to get to the end game, to get to the result.
Right.
And administrative people have to do all the steps that go through it, or salespeople or anybody in middle management. They got to go through all the steps to get there. Mm. And so they have to communicate well, and they have to get those skill sets down. And so when you put them in a forum like that, and you see how that interaction goes, it's revealing about the effectiveness of that particular management or that particular company's ability to communicate with each other.
That's really insightful. Yeah, no, that's super.
And sports teams have done it too. It's really interesting, and it's like, you guys, I mean, if you want to be a great team, it's not just all about one person and that. And sometimes, I mean, that's the story of Michael Jordan. When he first came into the league, he was so talented and he dominated everything. And then, the coach finally got him and told him, he said, if you want to win championships, you're going to have to function with the team.
Right. Absolutely.
All the major, talented superstars, Kobe was a great example of that. And, he learned how to be a team guy,
right.
Even though he was super, super talented and, a superstar. So, it's one of those things. I mean, you go through and I could give you a lot of other examples of athletes that I think are even more talented than those people in their respective areas and never won a championship.
Right.
Never won it.
Yeah.
Because their team, they didn't understand what the team was all about.
Right. No, it's really interesting to be able to have that kind of understanding and to be able to know, like, all right, this is what you need to do. And it gives you a lot of, I mean, I'm sure it opened a lot of eyes for the people that are partaking and like, oh, never thought about that.
Yeah. Well, that's most of the time, but occasionally you get it where it's like, this is a bunch of crap, I'm okay. I don't need that. And, it's like, all right, make your own way.
Sure.
But, and a lot of those guys that I followed haven't been as successful in their careers as they probably could have had they, not been in denial about what they needed to do to interact with people in a more, gracious and kind and understanding way that would, which those are not words that you would generally hear in business.
Right.
But I'll tell you, if you can put that in your organization or your coaching or all those things, if you can do all that, you'll be 10 times more successful. Mm-hmm. It may not happen overnight. I mean, right. John Wooden, failed miserably a number of times. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, was the winningest coach in basketball history. So, it might not happen right away, but I'm a believer that those are kinds of things that, eventually prevail and have, real meaning and create a great environment for the people that are, involved in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is a whole team built. I mean, everyone's a part of the ride. Everyone's a part of that journey and the end goal of trying to, the ranch or anything else. It's all family, no matter how many people are in the company or whatever. And I think you have more of that view of it rather than it's just, it's a more of a family atmosphere, and you're all in it together. While there is the different, obviously it is work and it is for profit and money and all that. So everyone's making a living, but the attitude towards it definitely will make a big difference. Now,
yeah, I had a partner, and I still have. He's still a partner in a deal that we did in 1993, and I don't know, about 5 years went by, and he said he's a very wealthy guy, he's a very prominent guy in the Midwest, and he said, what's the difference between having $10 million and having $1 billion? And I said, quite a bit. I mean, that's a big difference. He goes, no, not really, because at a certain point, all your needs are taken care of. And now it's just a question of what you want. And so it's like my old man used to say, and he was a good example of not following his own advice, but he always used to say, careful what you want, you might get it. And it's true. All of a sudden, you get to a point where, you have your needs taken care of, and it doesn't make a difference what that number is. I mean, it could be $1 million, it doesn't matter. It could be 100,000, it could be anything.
Right.
But once you've got those taken care of, then it's a question of, okay, well, what is rewarding in your life? And what are you trying to do? And are you comfortable with that? Have you thought through that, in what you're doing? And I think that if you can, recognize that, it was, it was great advice. At the time, I didn't have that kind of money at all. I was still working and trying to build a business, and,
sure.
We were making payrolls and stuff, so it was, but he was a very large Walmart developer and already made a lot of money. And so we were talking about it, and that's, I thought it was really good advice, because it kind of forced me to look at it and say, well, I don't know, what do I really want to do? I mean, if I am successful and, I feel comfortable, financially, and can meet all the needs of my family and that, what is it that I want to do? And it was good, because one of the things that I wanted to do is, like, I wanted to have horses. I wanted to have my ranch. I wanted to do, I wanted to do a bunch of things that I hadn't had a chance to do while I was building my business. And, spend more time with my family, and, be able to, go whenever I want to, see my grandkids' recitals and stuff like that. Because quite frankly, when I was building the business, I didn't have that luxury. I did the best I could in terms of, getting to where I needed to be. Yeah. But, it was a challenge. And, I certainly, did all right, because the kids are all doing great. But still, you go through that period where, you do examine, like, gee, I did miss a few things, and, and I don't want to miss them again.
Right. Yeah, no, certainly. And that's true. I mean, so when did you decide to finally make it was around 2004 when Blue Sky ran? Is that
yeah,
right?
I bought the ranch in 2004.
2004.
Yeah, it was great. I bought 19 head of purebred Herefords, and I bought 2 horses. I bought Grizzly and Cherokee. And and Barb did, she's a nice Jewish girl from the Valley. And, but she always said, well, I actually would like to ride. And so about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years later, she started taking riding lessons, and she did great. And she's a beautiful rider, and, she's a good athlete anyway, but, she was passionate about it. And so that became something that, we did together, and continued to do. And I raised the cows, and then, Barb was not comfortable with, me sending them to slaughter. And, a couple of times we raised beef for, High West, and that didn't go over too well. And that little calf's really cute, and so after, I don't know, I guess it was 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 years of doing that, she said, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't, I mean, we had a lot of baby cows that had been abandoned by their mothers, and, different things that just happens when you're doing the herd. And she said, I don't want you to do that. And I said, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. And so I sold the cows. We kept the ones that had sort of been orphans and that, but we kept them, and the ones that the girls had named. And so now we have like 35 pet cows, and they're there forever. And it's great, and so it's kind of, been more of an enlightenment for me about, I mean, I'm eating less meat. It's just, the way we do industrial production of beef is troublesome from a lot of different ways, but I mean, free range beef and that is great, but I agree with her. I mean, I don't really want to raise them anymore and kill them, so And leave that to other people, and that's fine. But it is nice to have an environment where there are certain animals that can live in peace and live out their lives without uh, killing them. And then the horses really just kind of continued to evolve. And when we right about I guess about 4 or 5 years before we built High West, we had an adventure business out there that was just a fun business, and we'd take people out on rides, and we do 3 or 4 rides a day up the mountain. And it got very, very popular, and really busy. So we built up the herd for that. And then, of course, we added fly fishing, and I had this kind of lousy trap shooting field that I was using. And so when we did the hotel, the guy that works for us, the Stuart Campbell, who ran Amangani up in Jackson for a long time, he said, if you're going to do that, it's just for you there. You should do like a really first-class sporting clay club. So we did that. And, so we just kind of like everything, world-class fishing and, all that stuff. And one of the things that happened when we did High West was, if we're going to do something out there, let's do it at the highest level. Yeah. And so that kind of set the tone. And that's how we ended up doing the lodge at that level, working with Auberge. Now we're just continuing to Gracie's Farm, which produces all the lettuce and vegetables and all that stuff for the restaurant and all the venues there. It's just continued to build over time. And we've stuck to sort of that creed of, okay, if we're going to do something, let's do it at the highest level. So when people come there, they experience it. It's an enjoyable, joyful kind of experience. And, hopefully they'll come away and have learned something. There's a lot of experiences there that, that people do and enjoy it. So that, just over the years, it's just one thing after another. But, we've tried to do it in the best possible way.
Well, one thing it really just screams is you're oozing that passion of, how it all started, and the things of doing it the right way, are not only to the highest level. And that's, the first time I was ever on the property or checked any of it out, I was like, wow, this is just absolutely first class, and done the right way, going and having those little details and the little things that wandering eyes sometimes notice, but most people might not. And they're like, wow, that's detailed. That looks great. The devil's definitely in the details when it comes to that stuff. And it's one of those things. And the hotel, the Auberge Hotel, it's first class, and just that whole canyon over there, the whole property is really just gorgeous.
It is. Well, for being as close to the freeway and right next to Park City, it really is beautiful, and it's got kind of a magic to it, which I always enjoyed, because when I first bought it, I did the fencing, I wrote everything, I was, been all over the property and just loved it. Sometimes when I had that yurt up there, and now it's over by the Sporting Clay Club, but I would just get a cot and sleeping bag, and I just stay up there. And because it was, I didn't want to come into Park City. It was, we'd be out there calving. It'd be, 3 o'clock in the morning, and trying to figure out, keep the coyotes away and all that stuff. And I'd be like tired, so I'd just stay up there. But, it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. And one of the things that Stuart came, before he came to work for me, he had worked for Steve Wynn, he'd worked for Amangani and all that. And he said, well, you don't want to do a hotel here, do you? And I said, well, yeah, I do. Why? He said, you don't want to do that. Why do you want to do that? I said, well, because I think it's beautiful, and I think we can share it with everybody. And he said, well, if that's the reason, then you should go ahead and do it. That's a really good reason. And because he said, there's a lot of rich guys do like, lodges and hotels, and it's an investment and everything. And I said, honestly, it's a legacy asset for our family and me. And, I'm just doing it because I want to enjoy it, and I'd like it to be profitable. Of course, you want to be successful financially. But if it broke even and it was just something that we enjoyed, and other people came and enjoyed it at the highest level, I'd be happy with that too. I have my other businesses, and that's great, and I enjoy that too. But really, I get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing people come to the lodge, and I'll be in the bar or something, and people really be having a great time. And and then they'll go out and they'll do yoga out in the trees, and but they do a lot of stuff that some of the stuff I haven't even done.
Yeah, no,
I'm going to get to it though.
Yeah, that's the right thing. Yeah, you got plenty of time. Go check it all out for sure.
No kidding.
So, the one thing I just wanted to ask for those out there thinking about being entrepreneurs or kind of getting into that landscape, or maybe trying to go out on their own, or they're just graduated from college or anything like that. Yeah, just a couple pieces of advice that maybe you could throw on top of what you've already given us for this episode so far.
Yeah. Well, the best thing I can tell you is you're going to face a lot of things that are going to seem insurmountable. And it's going to seem like the darkest day. And those are the days that you want to just power through.
Mhm.
Don't give up. Power through those, because you're going to go to bed, you're going to get up the next day, and things are going to look better. Things are going to change. The other the other advice I'd give when you're under pressure, it's easy to have a bad day and say something to somebody, or do something, make a decision that can injure somebody that you might have had a relationship and worked with for a long time. I've told a lot of people that work for me, to be very careful of how you behave, because you can spend years building a person and helping them get their skill sets where they want to be, and being an integral part of the organization. And then with one careless remark or one careless act or something, out of anger or something like that, you can destroy the whole thing. And those are things that are the most valuable. It's not how much money you make; it's how many relationships and friendships you have over the years. If you can keep those things intact and you make those part of what people have in your organization, or in your case, the people that you coach.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've experienced that. I had coaches in the past that, said some things and treated me poorly, and it ruined my relationship with them.
Sure.
And they had spent years with that, and I persevered through a lot of those things, as I'm sure you have. But those kinds of careless behaviors, when you're in a position of leadership and responsibility, um, those are things that come back on you.
Mhm.
And yes, the person may be disappointed in you, but you're going to be really disappointed in yourself when that happens. And that's not something that you want to have happen. You want to try to discipline yourself so you can manage yourself, which is the hardest part about really being effective. Um, and so those are the two things I tell you to be careful of. If you're out there, you're going to start a store, or you're going to start a podcast deal, and all of a sudden things start to grow and you need help, and you start to hire people, and you took the risk in the front in that, and of course, maybe somebody doesn't do things exactly like you were going to do it, or have been doing it. Could be a better way, but it's just not your way.
Mhm.
And you can hurt people's feelings. You can hurt their careers. You can cause them to be unresponsive to the things and cynical about the things that you're trying to accomplish as a group. And those are the things you really want to avoid. And then when things look darkest, I mean, you just have to persevere through them. You can't let it get in your way. I mean, I'm sure there's been times when you've thought, gosh, I don't know if I can do this. There's some really hot guys out there that are competing at a very, very high level.
Mhm.
You can lose your confidence.
Yeah.
Sometimes I got to tell you, I mean, sometimes it's like, is this the right idea? I mean, this is a tough deal.
Yeah.
And, you got to talk yourself back into it. So you can say, well, I acknowledge that, yes, it is a tough deal. And yes, it is. And I may fail.
Mhm.
That certainly could be an outcome, but I'm not going to be afraid of that. I'm going to stick to the basics. I'm going to get the process down, and I'm going to persevere through, the things that seem the most challenging. And in doing that, at some point, you're going to come out of it and you're going to look at it and go, boy, I'm sure glad I didn't quit, because if I'd have quit, I wouldn't have won a gold medal,
Right.
I wouldn't have had the lodge, or I wouldn't have had a 47-year relationship with my wife, I mean,
Mhm.
and that goes with your relationships too. I mean, I'll tell you, the one thing that is paramount, that's more important than any of those things, is to work on your marriage, or your significant other, whatever relationship you have. Doesn't matter what it is.
Okay.
If that's your companion, you got to work at it.
Mhm.
And sometimes those work, great, and you will keep working at it. Sometimes they don't work out that great. You can, people, sometimes they grow apart. But,
Mhm.
if you have a partnership where that person is supportive, regardless, of its success or failure. They're supportive of you, not how much money you got or whether you're going to do this career or that career. And you're supportive of what they want to do, no matter how difficult it is. And I'll tell you, I mean, my wife, Barb, wanted to be a fitness instructor and had a gym. And I said, fine, that's great. But I was starting a business, very difficult for me to do that. But it didn't matter to me because that's what she wanted to do.
Sure.
And as a partner, and being a successful partnership, I don't care how tough it is. If that's what the person wants to do, support them. Do what you need to do in order to get them to feel fulfilled in their own way. Because many people, that's something that they need fulfillment for. And so, that's probably at the highest priority. If you can gain those kinds of partnerships throughout your life, whether it's the intimate partnership of a love relationship, or whether it's a business partnership, or I don't care what it is, it could be just good friendship or partners that when you treasure those and you get support from those, you will be successful beyond your imagination, and those people will come out and help you if you really need it, and you've been straightforward with them about what the challenges are, and getting your enterprise done, whether it's coaching a world-class potential skier, or coaching a team, or running a company, or organizing a church, whatever it is. I mean, it's basically the same thing. You gotta pay attention to the people that are going to help you.
Yeah, well, I'm 7-8 months in to marriage, so I appreciate all the advice there. So the 47 years, it's definitely something to continue to strive for sure. So thank you so much for sharing the wise words, and really appreciate the time. And why don't we touch on the charity that the show is going to be donating to today?
Yeah. So Barb started a charity called Saving Gracie's Equine Healing Foundation. And about 8 years ago, there was a kind of a disaster down in Spanish Fork, and there were about 120 horses, and 40 of them died. And there had been a breeding farm, and the fellow that started it passed away, and the son and the wife tried to continue it, but they didn't do a good job, and then of course the economy was in trouble, and they ran out of money, and it's series of things, and they tried to do some things, but really what they did is they neglected a lot of the animals, and many of the animals died. So in Utah at that time, cattle and horses are treated as property, so they're just like a house. You have to go through a foreclosure. So normally in a state that had animal cruelty laws, the sheriff could just come in and confiscate the animals. They couldn't do that in this case, and they were suffering. So Barb and two of her girlfriends came down and rescued one of the horses, Gracie, which basically she just took and couldn't stand seeing her, and then they went through these auctions that the horses went through, and they rescued about 30. She ended up with about 13. We now have 25 rescue horses on the Saving Gracie's farm, which is down at the bottom right off of the One Ship exit. There's 20 acres that we have now rescue chickens. We got 35 rescue cows. We've got we had some goats for a while. We just, every time I come to the farm, apparently we've got a new deal. And so it's a charitable deal that people have supported. There's a drink called the Horse Thief up at the lodge and throughout the Auberge collection, and 10% of the proceeds of the profits go to Barb and Saving Gracie's Equine Healing Foundation. Barb and I have supported it over the years, own the property in the foundation. We continue to rescue one horse at a time. We have 4 or 5 horses that have been off the track that were injured or were going to be put down. One of them was in the Puerto Rico hurricane, and we spent $5,000 flying that horse up to Gracie's. So it's really great. It's and really appreciate your support on it. When you're around horses and you understand what kind of abuse they suffer sometimes, you realize how appreciative they are once you get them back to health. And so we have a full-time vet. We have the best wellness care that a rescued horse can get. We now have, because we've been doing it for quite a while, and some of them were older, we have two kind of end-of-life horses. One's 37, I think. Pebbles is 37. A horse will live until they're about 25.
Wow.
And we have probably another 4 or 5 that are in that 20 plus range that are in hospice that just, we just let them roam around.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them don't really go anywhere because they're so old. But,
Yeah.
Then we have some others that we've rehomed
Mm-hmm.
to, really good families. And then we also have rehabbed some of them and put them in the Blue Sky string for the guests. And then the guests can come down and meet them, have a relationship with them, and sometimes they will sponsor a horse. We also do some donations to people who are in other states that have challenges. And we also rescue horses from some of the kill farms that are still out there in Canada and Mexico. Guys will buy them at auction and then send them out. So those are the things that Barb does at the foundation. It's called Saving Gracie's Equine Healing Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Very proud of it, proud of her. And so, people can come out and visit anytime. And but really appreciate the support.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, it's absolutely a great cause. And full disclosure, Mike, I have never ridden a horse. I've never been on a horse before. So
well, knowing you and the skiing that you've done, we can get you going pretty quick.
Okay. Yeah. No, I have to. After this, it sounds like I have to get. I know my wife wants me to get. She wants to do some horseback riding. She's been on a couple horses. So
you just let me know, and we'll come out and get you on.
Well, thanks so much for the time, and I really do appreciate it. I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate it too.
All right. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're watching or listening on YouTube, please make sure you hit that bell button so you get notified every time a new episode drops. Thanks.